Welcome to VoiceOver Movies That Move Us. I'm your host, Heather Bigley, and I talk to people about the movies that made a mark, that led to cinematic epiphanies. And it's not always the movie you'd expect. Today's movie is Now and Then, directed by Liesl Linka Glatter and released in 1995. It stars Christina Ricci, Gabby Hoffman, Thora Birch, and Ashley Ashton Moore as 12-year-old friends on the cusp of adolescence in the summer of 1970. There's a plot about solving a murder cold case from their little town, but this is really a movie about how these girls interact together, how they understand each other, how they understand themselves. My guest today is Nava Kavelin, producer and co-host of Pod Crushed, a podcast about middle school featuring some of the biggest celebrities on the planet. She's also the CEO of Ninth Mode Media, based in LA. And we were teachers together once and co-sponsors of the Raven Literary Journal years ago in Flagstaff, Arizona. I'm grateful she made time for me. P.S. Her dog Louie makes an appearance, so get ready for a cuteness overload. Stick around after the convo for movie recommendations.
I ended up only being there for a week, but it was really cool because the week I was there, we filmed a scene in the subway and I got to see how that happens in New York. I've always been curious. And it turns out like the character enters through a real subway stop. So they had to put up like dividers, and there was like PAs to usher people in through the turnstiles. But some people obviously stop and they start filming, which can spoil the movie. But there's like nothing you can do because it's a public space. And it was so hot. So that was crazy. And then there's like an abandoned subway station, but it's a real subway station that they use to film if you ever see a scene that's like set in New York City on a subway, it was filmed in that station. And they like actually send for the subway, but it goes really slowly. And that was even hotter, if you could imagine. So it was like a very hot, sweaty day. But that was probably the coolest thing I saw. It was like, how do we film in the subway in New York? Chaos.
Oh, that's awesome.
Is the answer. But yeah.
What is the movie?
It's called You Deserve Each Other, and it's a romantic comedy starring Penn Badgley and Megan Fahey. Penn Badgley of You, Megan Fahey of White Lotus or Sirens. And it's a lovers to enemies story. They start out lovers, they end up enemies.
Okay.
Yeah. So you'll just have to watch.
Okay. It feels close to home. No, I mean, I didn't date very much, so I have no idea.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Okay, so let me say about Now and Then, 1995, I was a sophomore in college. So this was not something that I ran to see. But yeah. When I looked it up, I immediately recognized it. Like, oh yeah, okay, I remember this coming out. There's so much in there that just made me go back to when I was 12, which I think is the point.
Yeah.
But can we start with, who do you think this movie is for? Is it for the 12-year-olds or is it for the nostalgic? I mean, actually, these women, all the women playing the folks are like in their mid to late 30s.
Yeah.
So I was like,
but they're hardly in the movie. Like I rewatched it last night. I very much was the target audience. I was 11 when this movie came out, and I remember seeing it in the theater with, I think, my parents, because upon rewatching, I was like, some stuff that I thought was such a big deal wasn't. I know that the target audience is girls because I just read a review about it with Marlene King, who's the writer, but she talked about how the movie got horrible reviews. I think Roger and Ebert, I should know their names, gave it like a very low score. And her mom, she says her mom called her like right when the movie came out, that review came out. Her mom called her and was like, Marlene, like it got such a terrible rating. And Marlene was like, oh, Mom, those are just two old dudes. Like the movie's not for them. They don't get it. It's for women and girls and they're going to get it. And then they did. The movie was like a huge success and is still a cult hit. So she says the movie was for women and girls.
So you wrote to me that this was the first movie that made an impact as you were coming of age. So tell me about that impact and what felt like it was an important movie for you.
I think the first movie that I remember that just like impacted me, but I was a little kid, was My Girl. And it was because he died when the bee stung him. And I think it was the first time as a little kid that I dealt with grief. So when I think about like my childhood, like a few movies come to mind, and Now and Then and My Girl are always among them. Now and Then came out right on the cusp of like me being the same age as the protagonist. And I don't remember exactly what it was about it at the time that I found so moving, but I just know that it's like stayed with me as a movie that I'm always like, I should watch that again. I loved that movie. That movie was really impactful. But watching it again last night, I have a different relationship with death now because I've lost a parent. I hadn't at the time. So I don't know that the close calls with death would have been the thing, but I think it was the friendship with the girls and their like first explorations of crushes, like that being handled in a way that felt meaningful and not frivolous, I think is probably what stood out to me at the time.
You said there were things that you watching it with your parents seemed like a big deal because, and that's why I asked this question, who do you think it was for? Because I feel like there's a certain genre of film aimed at the 11, 12-year-old that isn't quite so frank about sex or questions about sex. And I was a little surprised in this one. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting these words or this discussion.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if those were things that in the theater with mom and dad, you're like, oh.
Well, one thing is like what I remembered of the movie is Devon Sawa and Christina Ricci having a big makeout scene, and they don't. Like when I watch it again, it's just like a quick little peck. But in all of my years of remembering it, I'm like, that movie has that great makeout scene. So somehow seeing that with my parents, even that scene felt like, oh my God, a boy and a girl kissed, and I'm watching it with my parents. I think I remember my parents being uncomfortable too. So probably I thought the little kiss made them uncomfortable. It was probably other stuff that was just going over my head that made them feel like maybe this movie wasn't appropriate. I think my mom felt weird about us watching that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks like it was rated PG-13. And that, I feel like, has taken on such huge parameters. Like, it can literally mean things like this that are just sort of discussions between young girls who are curious about sex and yet, have no experience.
Yeah.
Or it can mean raunchy college boys. Anyway, it can mean so many things.
Yeah, definitely. Agree with you. Yeah.
And so it feels like it's not even a barometer or even a helpful signpost at all, like who should be watching this film and who should not be watching this film.
Yeah.
I am trying to remember because I'm so old now. As a 50-year-old, I'm like, how did we talk about sex? And I know we were curious. I know there were questions we had, but it was also so sort of embarrassing that to be able to talk about it with anyone, just, I also grew up in Maryland. The public school system had a sex education class for fifth graders. So I do feel like a lot of questions got answered. So I don't know what your own personal experience was growing up and with sex education. Was that something that was available to you, or?
Well, watching this movie also made me realize that like everything I learned about sex, I learned on TV. My parents didn't ever sit me down to have the talk with me. And I was thinking about is her name Teeny, the character whose mom tells her about like the flowering of the garden. I was like, I don't even have like a memory that I could compare it to because my parents just didn't. As far as I recall, I don't remember my parents ever sitting me down to explain to me what it was. There's just an expectation that I wouldn't, like you don't do that until you're married, whatever that thing is. And so, I feel like that movie was probably a seminal way that I learned about sex to whatever degree I understood what was happening, which was not much, I think. But at my school, so I went to an Episcopalian school, no sex education. There's also like an abstinence only, which is not something that I like frown on at all. But we definitely had like 12-year-old boys bringing like porn to class, like Playboy magazines and like we would gather at recess and everyone would look at them. And so that's also how I was learning about it, was at school or in the media.
My mom did do identification of body parts, which was completely like dismissed by the grandparents. My grandparents like had weird names for everything, but no one would be saying these words out loud. And so like in one space, I'm using euphemism like birdie, but like in other spaces, I'm being told, no, that's not the right term. You need to use the
That's so funny. Wow.
But my mom was a nurse, so I think that was important.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
All that to say really is that I don't know that I had that many conversations with my friends about sex at that age.
I definitely did. Yeah.
Yeah. This film did make me think about those relationships I had at 11 or 12.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering, was the film mirroring for you what was going on in your own life with your friends, or was it more aspirational, or did you identify with that?
That's such a great question. I definitely had strong female friendships. I had two really good guy friends, but at 12, I kind of joined the inner circle of a group of boys and just kind of stayed there through high school, through the end of high school, just because they didn't see me as dating potential. So I was like, yeah, she's one of the boys. And that just stuck. But I still had my girlfriend group. So I couldn't relate to the like a group of girls who hates a group of boys because that just wasn't my experience at all. But I could relate to like the closeness of the friendship. Obviously, we never tried to solve a murder together, but like the seances and the like like we did play with Ouija boards. So a lot of the like curiosity that the movie shows, the like you don't talk to your parents, but you talk to your friends, like all of that felt really real and authentic to me. And I do think at the time I felt like other movies weren't showing that. Like that also like that movie felt real to me in a way.
So when I was 12, I just had one friend that I felt like every weekend I went to her house and we watched Dirty Dancing because that was her favorite movie.
That's so funny.
And I remember, I don't think I cared. I just was like, sure, this is what we're doing. And I don't even think I liked the movie that much. But,
That's
you know,
so
if you put
funny.
Dirty Dancing on now, I could quote
Line by line.
line by line the whole thing. Because I think that lasted for like a year. But when I turned 13, I got a group of friends and there were 4 of us. And I have to say, that's actually really difficult. And this movie kind of points to that. Like, you have within the foursome, like Teeny and Sam, they seem to be much better friends.
Yeah.
And Chrissy and Roberta seem to be much better friends. And there is this really interesting moment so Roberta pretends that she's drowned and Chrissy is going to give her mouth to mouth. And then it's all a joke, but Chrissy gets really angry and Chrissy says to Roberta,
Roberta, you're my best friend. Hey, how red hook you got there?
"You're my best friend." And Roberta cannot say that back to her. Do you remember seeing this last night?
Yeah, you're
She
right.
just says, well, I'm glad. She says something like, well, I'm glad you would have helped me or something like that. And I thought to myself, now that I remember is having 4 girls who are all supposedly all best friends, but there's all these like internecine kind of dynamics going on, and not everybody is happy with everyone else, and sometimes you are sly about the other people in the group. And it's what taught me that I was a jealous person. Like I don't think I would have ever thought that I was a jealous person. I certainly didn't feel jealous about boys or like, you know, boyfriends or anything like that. But wow, if I saw in my group that 2 people were going to hang out and I wasn't invited, like,
Yeah.
that felt painful. Yeah.
I think that's really astute. Actually, I was thinking about that yesterday when I was watching it, that I thought they really did a great job of capturing like the in-group dynamics in an in-group. And I think in the movie, like Sam almost drowns in the sewer, which is like this crazy dramatic moment. And I think they don't tell the other girls, which I was like, would that happen? I don't know. But definitely like the 2 characters would be so much closer that there could be like a life-changing thing that happens to one and they don't share it with the others. And I was thinking like there were 5 of us who were an in-group, and one of the 5, like her dad just had a lot of issues, and she would really only tell one girl in the group. And I didn't find out till much later all this like weird stuff that was happening at her home with her dad. And it's like, yeah, that's like who she trusted the most in that group. That's who she was closest with. I was trying to think how I was. I think I was close with like three of the group. So there was just one girl in the group I didn't feel that comfortable with. But if you could get me on a one-on-one call with any of the other 3, I would be like blurting out all my secrets. And I think I'm like a very open person. So I might have been the one sharing the most with the most people. And then there was one who was like sharing the least with the least people. And those dynamics of like who was the closest for us, it didn't stick to life. In the movie, they imply it's like, who arrives together, who's at the house together, it like stays through for their whole lives. But for me, it would like switch who I was closest with. Do boy groups have the same dynamics, or is this kind of like a girl thing more?
So what I've observed with my husband's friend group, they were all friends in high school and they are still friends. I've noticed in how they talk to each other and who talks to each other that there's definitely dynamics of, some people wouldn't necessarily reach out automatically to another person. I also know when I first met this friend group, they all made fun of one of them.
Aw.
And I just was like, why do you guys keep making fun of that guy? And they're like,
Poor guy.
oh, that's just how it is.
Wow.
They just thought that was normal. And I was like, man, like, you couldn't do that with women. Like, young
Yeah.
women would either like go in a cave and hide, or they'd come out with their nails, you know?
Yeah, they'd get back at you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember Heather and I were both teachers, as context for listeners, and we taught at the same school for a little while. But prior to that, when I did my teacher training in Texas, what I remember, one thing they told us is if you ever see a group of boys, like two boys fighting in the hallway, break it up, because the likelihood is that like one of them doesn't want to be fighting, or both of them, they're just like puffing up their chests. But if you ever see a group of girls fighting, or even just two girls fighting in a hallway, you can pour water on them, but do not get in the middle, because if a girl gets to the point where she's ready to fight, she will scratch the teeth. Like, she will scratch you. Like, she will not stop. So I thought that was really interesting. That was part of our teacher training.
So you've been a teacher. So watching this as a teacher, what did you think? Or I guess you said it hit different now. How did this movie hit different?
Well, in a couple of ways. I mean, one is like from a personal lens, as like a person who's lost someone. I really liked the way they handled grief. I actually thought it was really meaningful that they included this bit of like Roberta is trying to like make a joke out of death as like her way of handling it.
That wasn't the first time Roberta faked her own death. Earlier that year, she scared the hell out of us when she jumped off the roof and pretended she broke her neck. None of us had experienced a loss like Roberta's, and we didn't understand her jokes. But she kept trying to make death funny, maybe to make it easier for herself.
That was not my approach, but I did meet someone who lost several members of her family in a very short period of time, and she like can't talk about death in a serious way, like is always cracking jokes about it. And it's just helpful to know that people grieve in different ways. And I just thought it was really like true and authentic the way they captured it. And then that moment when she breaks down, I thought was so beautifully done. I was blown away by Christina Ricci.
Roberta, it's okay.
No! Not okay! Why did they have to die? Why did she have to die? My dad lied to me. He said that this beautiful angel swooped down to earth and carried her away before she had a second to feel any pain. Why did she have to die? Why did he have to lie to me? He's all I have left, and he lied.
It's not all you have left. All I can count on is you guys.
So I just, again, like, I don't remember how all of that was hitting me at 12, but I found it so meaningful and poignant at this age. And it also made me sad because I mean, I don't watch like a ton of content for like 12-year-olds because I don't have a 12-year-old and I'm not 12, but I do watch some because I'm in the entertainment industry and I think about content for YA. As far as I can tell, they're just not making stuff like this. Like, there's very violent stuff. A lot of young people are watching like horror films, but in stuff that's catered to young people, they just like avoid death. Like, it's not, there's like a lack of understanding that that young people have the capacity to deal with profound themes and that they're already thinking about this stuff. And actually media can help you process or can help you like understand what's normal and what's not. So yeah, I was just thinking about it from both those perspectives. It's like an individual who's experienced intense grief. I really liked the way they handled it. And then as someone in media, I felt really sad that I don't think we're making movies like this or My Girl or movies that are like dealing with profound topics and dealing with friendship in really like deep ways, not just like superficial, frivolous, or like my frenemy. You know, they never have to set that up for us to understand that some of the girls are better friends than others. And so, yeah, I felt Like the movie was more meaningful than I remembered and beautifully done. And I felt sad that we're not really seeing movies like that being made anymore.
I did think, I just felt worried about all of them. Like I was glad that they had the friend group because they seemed so separated from adults. And one of the things that happens, there's this hilarious sequence where Brendan Fraser shows up as the hippie vet who's, he's not flirting with them, but they're all kind of flirting with him. And they're going to all smoke a cigarette together and try to be really cool with the hippie vet. And he says this thing like,
I'm going to tell you something that I wish somebody told me when I was your age.
Oh, and what's that?
Your parents aren't always right.
but the girls will take this and kind of spin that out.
Sorry.
You can bring Louie on the screen if we need to bring Louie on the screen.
Hold on a second.
Hello, Louie.
Hello?
Oh my gosh, he's a wiener dog.
He's a little wiener dog, listeners.
He's so cute.
A classic one, black and brown.
Yeah.
Who's growling very intensely right now. I don't know why. Why are you growling, Louie? Okay, sorry, Heather.
It's fine. Okay. Where was I?
Brendan Fraser's character sort of letting the kids know, and that's a theme that plays out in the movie, right? Is like Roberta's dad lied to her about how her mom died, didn't think she could handle that truth. At Sam's house, there's like weird stuff. We don't fully understand why the parents divorced, but it seems like there are secrets being kept from the kids. So that like plays out after that encounter with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also think his character was meant to signalize that things in the U.S. were going to change. Like, because the movie is set in the 70s, but it was made in the 90s. We already have a sense that the country is starting to shift. And I think his character represents like a change coming. That's my understanding.
Yeah. And yeah, because the girls pretty much have this idyllic childhood, right? Mm-hmm. They live in this very protected neighborhood where there are tons of kids around that they are hanging out with. And even though they quote unquote hate the boys, like, you know, I mean, at that age, we had just moved to a suburb for the first time and we didn't know anybody. And I feel like I spent most of the time in the backyard climbing trees and just like, you know, like I didn't really have any friends because of that move. I wasn't unhappy. I read a lot of books, but just this kind of idea of what we think the mid-century American childhood looked like.
Yeah.
Very safe. Parents are home, but nobody wants to talk to the parents about anything.
That was something else that stood out to me as I was watching last night was like how none of these kids are on phones, how they have to kind of entertain themselves by trying to solve mysteries and going on these bike rides together and hanging out at cemeteries. And it's not far from the truth. Until I was 14, there were no one I knew had a smartphone or a flip phone or anything like that. And we would get into all these little adventures, like my neighbors and I. We would like play games in the building pool. We would play like volleyball together. Like I don't even think kids are meeting their neighbor. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people don't meet their neighbors anymore. So I had like a vibrant social life at school, and then I did have a vibrant social life. I lived in a condo, and like all the little kids were friends because what were we going to do all day, you know?
Right.
So I was also like, oh God, what are kids doing these days? Are they just on their phones? Are they just playing video games? Like that also made me I felt something.
Yeah. That they're not having that independence of just going out and figuring it out.
And having adventures and yeah.
We should say you grew up, I think, in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I grew up in Puerto Rico near the ocean, which was really, really helped shape me in some ways.
Golly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds so beautiful. Here's the other thing. You, in your email, were like, I'm going to stick with the middle school thing. So if no one knows, Nava is part of a podcast called Pod Crush that talks about coming of age stories. And your guests happen to all be massive celebrities. So we get to hear the sort of how they're really like us kind of stories that I've actually found really lovely. But you also are in charge of Ninth Mode Media, which is interested in creating young adult media. So you've just said, it feels like nothing like this is being produced anymore. Are you looking to produce something like this, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. My dream is to make a comedy. I hope you have executives listening to the show. Maybe this is how I'm going to make my dream happen. My dream is to produce a comedy that's for kids, like, or for teens that feels appropriate. I do think that comedy is the easiest way, or the way where like the viewer is the least like guarded. I think it's the easiest way actually to address social themes in a way that's like meaningful, impactful, and not too like on the nose. So just think about like all the incredible work that Norman Lear did in trying to like show like blacks and whites could be friends together. You know, he was such a pioneer. There are some shows like that, like The Neighborhood is one. There's a few, but I just don't think there's many, and I don't think there are really any for young people. So my dream is to make a comedy that's targeted to tweens, but as far as I can tell, there's not a lot of appetite for that from executives. I don't want to say the market, because I think people don't include the audience actually that much. I think they feed the audience stuff and then train them to want that. And they're like, well, little kids just want to watch, you know, Game of Thrones, so let's just make them get no,
Right.
That's the only thing that's out there, so that's what they're watching, you know. So yeah, that is my dream, but we have tried to develop a few like very meaningful things for young people, and what we find is there's really a lot of appetite for like violence and horror, and even for young people, which if you think about like Wednesday, I don't know who's the audience for that.
So this is so interesting to me when we talk about who the film is for and who actually finds it, because I happen to have known several people behind the creation of Napoleon Dynamite. And what's interesting about that to me is I don't think those people set out to say, let's make a movie for tweens. But if you look at who that movie really hit with, it's like 10 and 11-year-olds like adopted that movie, and it became their film and they loved it. I think the reason it hits with that group is the characters are all awkward and they're kind of goofy.
Yeah.
It's like completely asexual. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a high school movie without sexy high schoolers in it, which we don't get very often.
That's
right?
so true. Yeah.
It's not violent. There's a llama involved. Like, I mean, there's just some real sweetness to it.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think they set out to say, oh, we want to make a movie for 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
They just kind of fell into it.
I think it's observant. Like it's, and as a company, it's not our only strategy. So my company has 3 members, and I'm kind of the one that's like fixated on, I really want to do something for tweens. Also, I was like a middle school teacher and then a middle school administrator. So like, that's just an age group that I care about a lot. And I think they're underserved. And it's such an important time developmentally. Like there's a lot of research about what happens in the brain between 12 and 15. And it's like a really critical time. So the media you consume is definitely like doing something in there. So why not something really positive and uplifting? And, but I think right now, a lot of what young people are watching wasn't made for them. And they're just like stumbling upon it. And that's what they latch onto. And yeah.
One more question that's connected to the movie, which is the movie sort of has this kind of lovely idea of like, oh, these 12-year-olds all knew each other, and then 25 years later they're still friends and they're still getting together. Did it happen for you?
Yes. So my graduating class was 25 kids, of which roughly half had been together since kindergarten. So we're still close. We're on a group WhatsApp. The whole senior class is on a group WhatsApp. And then there was a group of 5 girls who was the 5 girls I was talking about. We were together since kindergarten, and we have a chat called Kindergirls. And we like check in every week. People send pictures of their kids. I send pictures of my dogs. And I used to go to Puerto Rico once a year, and I would always get together with my girlfriends. And once in a while, there'd be like a big class reunion. I haven't been back in 4 years, but I'm on the WhatsApp group, and they once a year they get together around Christmas or New Year's. But people are still really close. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just clarify that the friend that I had at 12, I feel so bad about this. So when I was 12, I was friends with her and we watched Dirty Dancing. And then I met these other girls and I just kind of got absorbed into their group. And it didn't occur to me that she would have feelings about that. And that as I was spending more time with them, that she herself would be hurt.
Even though
Like,
you
I
talked
just-
about feeling jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
even
so
though like I was
interesting.
completely unaware that my actions would have any kind of consequence, right? And when we were in 8th grade, she wrote me this card, like where she said, I'm really upset that you don't hang out with me anymore. And I can't believe that we're not friends anymore. And I don't know what happened. And I just want to be friends with you. And I just kind of put that card in my backpack and
Why do you think you ignored it?
I have to say there was a lot of weird, crazy, trauma, chaotic stuff going on at home. And so I don't think anyone was teaching me how to be a good friend. Like there just wasn't space for that. And I just felt in some ways like, oh, I've got these other friends and I don't want to ruin that. Like, you know, like I didn't have the emotional maturity to be aware of what I was doing and how it was affecting people.
Yeah.
And it probably took me a decade to actually get into a space where I could be better at that. Though I don't know, if you ask my friends when I was 30.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, you know, I was sharing like stuff that makes me sad that young people are missing out on. But on the flip side, there is some stuff that they have that we didn't. I think young people are more comfortable with like therapy talk. I think they are more emotionally sensitive, or they like have the language to express that. Like I feel like a 12-year-old today would be better equipped to handle a letter like that from a friend maybe than we would have been at 12. I could be wrong, but that's my sense. Seeing my nephews are 8 and 11, and the little one is like really concerned with, he wouldn't tell you this, and sometimes he says stuff that's a little bit sexist, but he is pretty concerned with gender equality. Like if he, like we were listening to something, and in the Baha'i writings, like in many religions, stuff is written in the masculine, even if it applies to everyone. So it'll say like mankind instead of humanity. So we were listening to a quote and it said mankind, and he screamed out humanity. He's like, what about women? And I just thought that was so charming, you know, like literally no one in my family would be like, it shouldn't say mankind. It's so we didn't teach him that. Like he just, you know, on his own. And there was a movie we watched where it was like only male pilots. And he's like, why aren't they showing a female pilot? Women can be pilots. And I like love that. I don't think 8-year-olds in the 90s were like concerned about these things, you know?
No.
Yeah.
I feel like 8-year-olds and when I was growing up in the 80s were like, of course boys only do this.
Yeah.
And of course girls only do that.
Exactly.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad we've come that far. That's lovely for you to have shared with us.
Yeah.
There's hope for the future.
There is hope. Yeah. It's great things happening among the young.
Thanks to Nava for talking me through this movie. Middle school is tricky for most of us, and group friendships take time and energy to figure out. I mentioned the 4 friends I had in 8th grade and high school. One of them died unexpectedly about 5 years ago now, and mourning her meant mourning not just the woman that I had grown up with, but mourning those girls decades ago who were trying to be friends. And it made me wish I hadn't been so petty and so jealous and so scared and immature. I looked up some of the movies that were in the theaters when I was 12. This would have been in about the mid-'80s. Aristocats was being rerun by the Disney Company. There was also Mannequin, Can't Buy Me Love, Batteries Not Included, and Empire of the Sun. And I saw all of these in the theaters with my sister over the summer. It was just one way we could escape our house. They also speak to teen options in the 1980s. So there's like teen comedies, but animated children's films, and occasionally a film made for an adult audience that's clean enough for a younger demographic. I don't know if I recommend these films, but, they taught me all kinds of things, like more about department store window dressing and how to make a robot and what it was like under Japanese occupation in Hong Kong. More seriously, they talked to me about what love and friendship were supposed to look like. I don't know if they stand the test of time. You know, it's always alarming to go back to a document from your younger years and realize, oh, wow, look how horribly racist this is against Asians. But here are a few actual recommendations for films that are about being that age or might be appropriate for that age. The first is Greta Gerwig's excellent 2019 Little Women. It's a fantastic adaptation of Louisa May Alcott's novel, mainly because she's going to reframe that tension between Joe and Amy as two artists with different approaches to their art. It's a great discussion about how we begin to plan our lives and then how we take the first steps to live out those plans. Also in 2019, Italian director Matteo Garrone brought another version of Pinocchio to life. It's really cool because it's using practical effects and makeup instead of like CGI. And it's showing us this dark fantasy of learning how to be human, how to be moral, how to take care of those around you, which is just another way of saying how to grow up. If you haven't already seen it, and I can't imagine that you haven't, but if you haven't already seen it, you should totally watch Hayao Miyazaki's 2001 Spirited Away. It's about a girl who has to save her parents. They've been turned into pigs by battling spirits and outsmarting these creatures from Japanese folklore. The film is hand-drawn, and it features all kinds of otherworldly imagery. It's a perfect introduction to Studio Ghibli, which has a ton of great films that young people really, really feel close to. That's it for today's show. VoiceOver is a production of BYU Radio and is edited by Spencer Boyer. I'm your host, Heather Bigley.